Thank you very much, Michelle. Hello again, everybody. I'm
Hello.
very honored also to have a presentation on a particular indigenous system of governance. So in my presentation, I wish to analyze an indigenous system of governance developed by Somali people of the Horn of Africa, generally known as the Issa Hair. It is at the basis of a model of governance that Western researchers have called pastoral democracy. The hair is an example of the creativity of African society to cope with political, economic, and socio-cultural transformation, which contradict some prejudices on the so-called static traditional society. And as just my predecessor have already highlighted, Ibrahim Ndoye, uh, according to historical record, the Isa hair emerged in the 16th century in the Horn of Africa as a response to the profound socio-political crisis that occurred in this region. It was indeed a troubled century during which the existing power structure of the region, in particular the Muslim Sultanate ruling the commercial city-states along the Red Sea, have collapsed. The hair is therefore a direct product of this chaotic period in the Horn of Africa, marked by mistrust, fear, power struggle, and conflict, which seem very similar to what we are witnessing today in the region, and in particular in Somalia. And historians have generally noted the following effect. We have a decline of consensual governance, increase of insecurity in cities, emergence of authoritarian rulers, migratory movement of population in the whole region, and spread of pandemics like cholera, and instrumentalization of religion and ethnicity. The hair is a response, therefore, to the disappearance of the specific citizenship and urban identity that has developed in the autonomous city-states of the region around the sharing of commercial ties, social norms, and cultural specificity. So the hair is to be considered as a socio-political contract, which has permitted to regroup some of these disparate communities around a new ethical, political, and social foundations. Its ultimate goal is to offer protection to these communities, joining this new regrouping, preserve social cohesion, consensus, and peace among them. The hair is a holistic system of institution, rules, and regulation, which has integrated the metaphysical representation and spiritual beliefs of the concerned communities through a very articulated theoretical framework. It comprised three main components: a political uh, constitution, which defined the distribution of power to the different institutions and the process of their decision making; a penal code, which established a community system of justice focusing on the reconciliation and compensation, and whose ultimate goal is not to punish but to repair; and finally, a code of social conduct, which defines a series of metaphysical, spiritual, and social principles and values to regulate the collective and individual behavior. Due to time constraint, I just would like to focus only on the hair as a political constitution for today. It is institute four bodies. The first one is the Gudi, or the Council of the Wise, which is a body of elders with a very large set of powers. As the supreme organ of the hair system, the Gudi plays three different roles: the role of parliament, legislative power; the role of a court of justice, judicial power; and finally the law of law enforcement, which is the executive power. The Gudi has large competence to deal with social, political, and economic matters regarding the community. It is composed of 45 members chosen equally from the 12 clans of the Confederation according to their wisdom, moral integrity, and knowledge. The second institution is the Gande. It has three types of function. It plays the role of a constitutional court, which controls the constitutionality of the decision taken by the Gudi. The role of a Supreme Court, it handles exceptional cases that were not resolved by the other bodies of the Hair. And finally, a role of a training institution. The member of the Gandhi serves as the trainers and advisor when they end their term. The designation of the Gandhi's member is made through a very specific process of selection using metaphysical and psychological knowledge to identify the appropriate candidate for this crucial function. The third body is the Ugas, or the king. He is the spiritual leader of the community whose ultimate function is to facilitate the decision-making process. He is given three types of roles. The role of a guardian of unity and consensus, as he have the role of a peacemaker to resolve and prevent conflict between the members of its community, but also between them and other groups. The role of a political leader, because as he should bless, embody, and promulgate the decision taken by the Gudi and the Gande, the two assemblies I just mentioned. And finally, a spiritual leader, the role of a spiritual leader, as he is asked to pray for his people and use his magic force to call for rain, to protect them against external calamity, etc. The fourth body of the Hair is the military chief. During war or imminent threat facing the community, the Hair gives full authority to a leadership called, or a military chief called Mirih, selected by the elders on the basis of his military and strategic abilities. During such a state of emergency, the functions of other institutions are limited and some disposition of the Hair is suspended. During this special period, the command-in-chief, the role it plays, decides on the displacement of the community, the distribution of duty, the collection of food, stepping in a certain way the usual process of democratic decision-making. After this brief presentation of this holistic system, I would like now to discuss 5 characteristics of the Hair from which we could draw some lessons for our debate on the revalorization of indigenous system of governance in Africa. The first one concerns the balance between the rule of blood and the rule of law. The Hair has introduced an interesting balance between the blood-based kinship and the law-based relationship. It creates a confederation of communities divided into different families linked by genealogy, but united around a socio-political contract that gives the primacy to the rule of law. As a precept of the Hair shows this dialectic between blood and law, which says, make testimony against your brother if he violates the law, but help him afterwards to pay his fine, as you are the family of his family. Walalka markhatiga kufur maktana labhi in Somali language. The second characteristic concerns the balance between individual rights and collective duties. In the Hair, the individual is indeed given freedom of expression, of movement, and of will. However, each individual is inserted in webs of social solidarity and social obligation that limits his individualism and his capacity to do harm to the community. His sociability is regulated and mediated by intermediary institutions such as the dia-paying groups, the age groups, and the initiation brotherhood. Before expressing or claiming their rights, individuals are expected to consult their peers from these different networks, explain their views, verify the legitimacy of the request, and obtain their consent. And this consent request of groups validation and approval is an educational process, which helps to learn about the tension between individual rights and collective obligation, to learn also how to debate and build the consensus in compliance with the common interest. The rights of individualism as an autonomous entity and the weakening of intermediary mediators such as peer groups has an important impact in the preservation of this system of governance. The third point concerns the consensual process of decision making. The Hare enshrines the principle of inclusion, equal representation, and participation as fundamental pillars of the system. The two main institutions, the Council of the Wise, the Gudi, and the Constitutional Court, the Gande, are composed of the representative of all the group of the Confederation, each playing a specific role in the process of decision making and in the symbolic representation of power. Decisions are taken only when a large consensus is reached, and the whole process is based on this principle of equality, clearly specified by the first precept of the Hare system, which stimulates all the Isa are equal, and no one can be more equal than other in any case. The decision making is fully decentralized in the territory of the Confederation, which is divided into 12 trees or constituency or circumscription, each of them having its own council of the wise with the same power. The ritualization of the process facilitates the interiorization of this representation and participation and prevents their transgression. The Hare does not apply majority rules in its mode of representation and its decision-making process. It privileges direct and collegial participation. To that end, it offers the legal possibility to pass through 12 courts or trees in order to maximize the chance for consensus. The Hare has neither a mechanism of coercion to enforce its decision, nor prison to punish those violating the law. The enforcement of decision engaged the honor and the credibility of those who took it. Law enforcement is ensured through a code of ethical and social conduct based on the value of honor and respectability, on the fear of communal, ancestral, and divine judgment. Knowledge of the law is inculcated from an early age in all members of the community through civics education program in the form of tales, proverbs, games, poetry, as well as through the ritual of initiation. From 15, every young man is allowed to attend the deliberation of the assemblies to train himself for his future role as an active member. The four characteristics of the Hare system of governance is its mechanism to neutralize and regulate the power. In the Hare system of government, power is shared in a balanced way between clan chiefs in the family for family matters, council of the wise for the public affairs, and the Ugas for the preservation of peace, and finally the chief warrior Mirih in situation of war. For instance, despite the sacralization of his position, the Ugas does not exercise power. He is confined in the symbolic and spiritual spheres, burdened by numerous obligations. The Ugas is not given any room of coercion to impose his agenda. It is through this kind of limitation that the Hare managed to neutralize the temptation of royal power towards absolutism. The founder of the Hare have even anticipated the inherent risk in the designation of an empowerment of the king among the pretenders of the kingship. The title of Ugas is neither hereditary to avoid competition among the descendants, nor elective to discover competition among the different clans of the confederation. The Ugas is chosen by the elders from among the young people of a specific group after a long observation and search, during which all kinds of knowledge such as astrology, divination, dreams, interpretation, psychological testing, and so forth are used to find the young man who presents the visible and invisible signs of being the blessed one. For instance, the relationship with other human beings, but also with animals and with their environment, are part of the selection criteria to choose the future Ugas.
1 minute,
the last
please.
and the fifth yes, I will conclude. The last and the fifth characteristic of possible interest for our discussion here is the way minorities are treated and integrated in the large communities. In the herd, the most symbolic representation of power, that is of the Ugas, is embodied by individuals coming from a clan which, according to the founding legend, was not part of the initial group and considered as a minority group. So, to conclude, I would like to highlight the importance for African countries confronted with the failure of imported models of governance to engage an autonomous reflection on the issue of the rules of the majority, the separation of powers, the secret vote, the ballot system, and the method of representation in light of the analysis of their own indigenous system of governance. Only such rethinking and reconceptualization can facilitate the necessary paradigm shift, which would allow us to build alternative solutions to our current governance crisis. I thank you for your attention.